Well, here we are, our December issue of The Gist. And I don't know about you, Warren B., but 2020, I think, has been an unprecedented year for the world, our country, us probably individually, and everything that goes in between. So I would like to personally just thank all of our subscribers for having the positivity and the insight and the mindset to not let all of these distractions that have been going on in the world distract you from achieving your ultimate goals and further enhancing your skills in the game. So I just wanted to say, as we get into our December Art of Game, a hearty thank you to all of our subscribers, again, as I mentioned. And I just commend you for hanging with us and hanging with yourself and working towards mastery, working towards your goals or whatever it is that you might be pursuing. So keep it up. Don't get distracted, and let's get rolling with our December concept as we're basically concluding with our following down the mastery path and discussing our the Book of Mastery by Robert Greene. And with that, I will hand over my first question to you, Warren B. So my first question, not really a question, but we're going to discuss for talking about mastery in December is, I think it's important, since we've been on this journey for many months now, to kind of do a quick recap, if you will, before I pose my question to you, Warren B., in the sense of we've gone over a lot of stuff in mastery. And if you think back, way back in, I think it was March or April, May, when we started Mastery, not long after we reconfigured The Gist. And we started talking about Robert Greene's book, Mastery. And our first thought and introduction to that was this topic of discovering your calling. That's your life's task. And then from there, we moved into submitting to reality and finding the ideal apprenticeship, followed by absorbing our master's power, or absorbing the master's power, the mentor dynamic, followed by seeing people as they are, your social intelligence. And then we got into awakening the dimensional mind, the creative active, and how we can further push that forward. And then we concluded with the fusing of the intuitive with the rational on our path towards mastery. So my question to you, Warren B., is obviously that's a lot of ground to cover, and we've done, I think, a pretty thorough job each month of diving into those topics with our content and Art of Game and articles and things like that. But for me, I think that one of the most important skills, and for me personally, that I feel that I have done a fairly good job at mastering and trying to always enhance this skill of mine, is the component of the see people as they are, the social intelligence aspect. And for me, I think that's just so important, of being able to not react in situations, but more importantly, being able to study our situations that we might be in, the people that we might be around, and so that we can evaluate them and know how we can basically create our game in that moment so that we can have a better outcome. So whether it be closing a deal, going on a date, getting a grant approved, or, running for office, whatever it might be. But we're constantly in situations where we're surrounded by other people. They're evaluating us, and we have to be evaluating them, and utilizing our social intelligence and honing that skill is, in my opinion, one of the most important skills on the path of mastery. Now, for you, Pimp God, would you agree that social intelligence is one of the higher levels of mastery that we discussed during our time down the mastery path, or would you pick another one of those listed?
To your first question, while I do believe that social intelligence, what we call black pill reality or acceptance, is very important and definitely amongst the most powerful. I think that, and I can say that the reason that is because you have to know what's in front of you. You have to know what you're looking at, and you have to accept what it is. You have to develop a thick skin. A lot of people don't deal with red pill, let alone black pill knowledge, because their skin is too thin. They can't handle it. Even Neo couldn't handle the truth when he was introduced to it, but he wanted it. Morpheus said, "I feel like I owe you an apology." He said, we never free a mind past a certain age because the mind has difficulty letting go. By the time that a boy turns 12, 13, 14, in that range, he should start having fun arguments with his mother. Not disrespectful, but fun, where he starts calling her out on her lack of logic to the same degree that's natural to him. If he develops himself properly, he develops a confidence in his masculine, in his ability to use deductive reasoning. Male logic is superior to primal emotion. Women are governed by emotion. The highest level of intelligence is feminine. And that's said by someone who allegedly hates women. But the highest level of intelligence is feminine. But it's not the primal emotion that governs most women. It's emotional intelligence. And so while being able to look at things and seeing it for what it is, differentiating and properly, not judging, but compartmentalizing things and accepting that that's what it is. That's key. But at the highest level is intel. IN-TELL. People who say, I'm a PhD, are whack to me. I matched a master's degree with simple intelligence. I had a cousin in Kentucky who was a school teacher, and she had a master's degree. And I was talking to my favorite cousin, which was her younger sister, about my music and just talking to her. And so she butted in with the arrogance. See, this is the problem with information. It often spawns arrogance. What is arrogance? Is it confidence in what you know? No. Arrogance is overcompensation for what you don't know. People who are full of information, right, are devoid of intelligence. People who are full of information are devoid of intelligence. You have to use memory in order to memorize. You use memory in order to memorize. And when you're full of information that you've memorized, there's no room for intelligence. Intelligence, you can completely pour everything out of the cup. It's when you know that you don't know, but you tap into the source of all knowing. Whoa, that's a whole nother level. Empty your of all that you think you know. Tap into the source of all intelligence, and you become a source of infinite intelligence, because it's infinite. Information is finite. You know, you can get this information, this and this and this and that, but where's the intel? Where are your daily moves that's based upon a higher use of your consciousness? See, so while being able to see things for what they are is key, you have to be able to tap in to infinite intelligence, which means that everything that you think you know, you need to put it on the back burner. There's a phrase, too much studying can pollute the soul. The soul is infinite intelligence. It is an aspect of infinite intelligence. Too much studying, right, can block the flow of infinite intelligence in your life. Because now you're just saying, I'm a PhD. And you sound like cardboard talking to me. It's like the box of cereal start having a conversation with me. I'm not going to take it seriously. I'm going to put some tape over its mouth and put it back up in the cupboard. I don't want stored information. I want infinite intelligence. Because when you make moves in life, right, it can't just be based upon your plan that you have on paper. Remember, if you start a business is a plant. It's not a towel that hangs on a rack in the bathroom. A business is a plant. It's organic. And you have to allow it to organically become what it's supposed to become. Now you may start a car lot on paper, and you get everything together, get your licenses and get your little monies together, start getting your cars and this and that. But then as you go along in an organic business, that's why a lot of businesses don't make it, because the owner himself is not in tune to infinite intelligence. He just has a brick and mortar. He just has a business plan on paper. But your business is not a plan on paper. Your business is a plant with its own evolution. So you started a car lot on paper, and then you noticed that everybody that was buying cars from you had a hard time getting insurance that was affordable. So you're selling them a car, but they don't have insurance. So you see a problem. Problem is the seed of business. Problems are the seeds of business. Well, what business should I go into? Well, what problems around you can you address? Oh, well then you see there's infinite, aren't there? There's infinite businesses that you can go into. You don't look to a book to try to see, well, what's a good business to go into? You just look around and see what kind of problems people got that you can solve. So you start a wing of your business that provides limited liability coverage for people who have a hard time, maybe for past record stuff or whatever, getting insurance. And they can pay their insurance at the same lot where they get their cars. And as you go along, you find that more and more people who may not even buy a car from you are coming there for your reliable but affordable insurance. And before you know it, when you look at your bottom line, you're looking at what your business was supposed to be on paper, but you're looking at the plant and what it's doing organically. And before you know it, you realize that 2/3 of your income is in insurance. What if you added a couple more policies, right? They did full coverage and then different things like that. And then you sold off the remainder of your cars. And now you're a multi-million-dollar insurance company. That wasn't on paper. That wasn't on what I had planned. Intelligence is the highest level of mind. But yes, black pill knowledge, being able to read things and see it for what they are, is key, because you're going to need black pill wisdom to be able to see what your business is doing organically and accept what it is. Don't die and sink with a Titanic that you could have averted the glacier to begin with had you been looking. Intelligence, that's how you lead your family. Intelligence, that's how you run your business. And it should be intelligence, that's how you run a country.
So for December, we've talked about the idea of recapping everything that we learned, but what we're going to focus on for our Lesson for Mastery for this month is going to be about taking some case study ideas, and Robert Greene basically added a additional text to the Mastery book in the form of a very slightly edited version of all of his interviews of people that he talked to for the writing of the book, and turned that into basically a book that is much more in depth of all the interviews versus the synopsis that we had in the book Mastery. That would be the case study going into each of those topics that we just previously discussed. So we're going to talk about some different people that he used as case studies on an individual level, but more so on an overall level of what do they have and what do we have in common with them. So a lot of people tend to think, and maybe you might even be one of them, that in order to achieve great things, such as painting the Sistine Chapel or writing great music or being an athlete or rocket scientist or engineer, or teacher, whatever the case may be. When people succeed and truly master that, from the outside, we often judge and think, well, they just got lucky, or they just have so much natural ability and talent that they were born with, that they just had to succeed. And we don't have that, so we're not going to be able to succeed at the same level. Well, as we've seen through our study of Mastery so far, and to go back, it's not a matter of you don't have what they don't have. It's a matter of you're not using what you have to the best of your ability. So having said that, Warren B., would you agree or disagree, or what is your thought process in the idea of you have to essentially set yourself up and align yourself up with your true natural talents so that you will have the ability to achieve what you want to achieve, versus letting other people tell you what you should be doing with your life or what your skill set says that you should do?
For this question, I want to begin with the fact that there's a lot of similarities between man and animal. And the one thing that was never counted upon when man was created was for man to evolve past that of a two-legged animal that just, took instructions and was sort of just a worker bee. Believe it or not, from my understanding, when the Bible says, behold, man has become like one of us, the us was that which created man. In Genesis, it's right there in Genesis. And the us that created man, from my studies, represents a lower God essence. Okay. Lower as in not the most intelligent, not the most benevolent, right? Man was created to be a slave. And from my understanding, there were other gods, another group, so to speak, that did not want man to just be a slave to the gods, the us that created man. So from my understanding, that other aspect, that positive or that benevolent aspect, put some of its essence in man without the malevolence knowing it, which gave man consciousness. Now, you say, well, I've been studying the Bible or whatever all my life, whatever. But again, the Bible is a very esoteric book. And the more that you grow and change, the Bible changes with you. Because you see it differently. Right? Than just what was given to you as a Christian. But in the Bible, excuse me, it said that God was walking through the garden and Adam and Eve heard him coming and they were hiding. And when God finally found them, he asked them why they were hiding. And they said, we heard you coming. We were hiding because we were naked. But man and woman had been naked. So when you see the pictures of Adam and Eve depicted in pictures and stuff, and they have the leaves covering them, that's a symbol of consciousness. Because initially man was just naked and it didn't fucking matter. You're just fucking naked. Stupid. But what the malevolence that created man did not know was that man had God consciousness in him too. And so he said, well, who told you that you was naked? Right? you know. And what happened was they became knowledgeable about themselves. And that was when all hell broke loose. And from my understanding, this is when the zodiac, with respect to man, was actually implemented. The zodiac was actually designed to be an esoteric jail for man. Understanding, astronomy and astrology and things of that nature. Like they say, millionaires might not use that, but billionaires do. Right? But there's a difference in the use of it and the understanding of it, right? Understanding what cage that you were placed in when you came through the gate is good, because that'll give you some insight on how to understand what influences you, right? And work to use a higher consciousness to develop yourself so that you can get out from under or out of or escape that cage. So once man was, once he realized he had consciousness, and once the gods realized that he had consciousness, right, then they put him in, they kicked him out of the garden, so to speak. And it was said that, measures were taken to subjugate man and his evolution. And part of that, the Bible doesn't say it, but it does. But that was where the zodiac was created. And it was created again to keep man in an imprisoned state, because the gods that created man realized that he came to consciousness. So there is a similarity between man and animal, but there's something in man that animals don't have. And that is the ability to fixate one's attention on something in particular. There's a power there that man has. And this is this is something that was never wanted for man, to come into consciousness, particularly of himself. Who told you were naked? And we have to understand that college and what we call education is actually, it has an adverse effect upon man. Though it may seem to be something that will give you liberation, and what have you, it's actually something that is designed to keep you enslaved too. Because what are you being educated to do? Most people who graduate from college went to college to learn how to be an employee, which is again a servant. And when you have a degree in your head, I'm a PhD, I'm a this, I'm a that, right? What it does is it shuts down, right, your propensity to focus your attention in a way that will help you to evolve even more. Because I'm a PhD. You already have given yourself a title of knowledge. So there is no motive to continue to evolve when you can just say, I'm a PhD. And so your potential to evolve begins to atrophy over time. And so in the lost books of the Bible, that's where a lot of secret shit is. The books they decided to take out. And in one of them, Jesus, as he's called, Yeshua, really encourages man to stay away from titles. I'm master's degree. I'm PhD. I'm a master mason. I'm a, whatever. A Shriner, whatever you want to come up with. Break out the violins. In the lost books of the Bible, Jesus warns man to stay away from titles. Because a title is a ceiling. So you are on the first floor of a 32-story building. And you get tall enough for your head to reach the ceiling of the first floor. But then you stop growing. What if God wanted you to be taller than the building in your consciousness? But you gave yourself this title. So you may become that, but no more. And so we have to understand that your ability to focus your attention on something that will help you to manifest great things in life is something that the animals don't have. But you have to remember the reason why 80+% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck is because they have the title, white. That's a title. Ain't one I want. It's leprosy in the Bible. I don't want that title. But some people have that title. So whatever that means, you might become that, but no more. And so the goal is to recognize the true source of wisdom. The wisest man knows that he knows nothing. Don't put a cap on that. Because when I was a child, the Bible says, I thought as a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, but when I became mature, I put away childish things. Every single time you learn something new, you change neurologically. Why would you put a cap on that? The fear of the gods that created man is for you to become like one of them. When the truth of the matter is that at your highest level, you will surpass them.
So if we're continuing along this idea of these great people that we've talked about throughout our mastery study, being able to achieve such magnificent things, and it's only because that they were born with all these abilities, I want people to remember, again, that this is something that we can all do. Everyone can aspire to mastery. And the thing that strikes me over and over and over again with these case studies in looking at people is that they take a long time to study what they're interested in, much like, for example, everyone's heard the story of Michael Jordan, practicing for 20,000 hours, but they've done all these different studies and things to show that it actually does take 10, 20,000 hours at least to start to develop that mindset where whatever you're studying or whatever you're doing, practicing, becomes second nature in your brain. So that is one component where people, I think, end up dropping the ball, Warren B., is that they think that they can just do something for like 6 months and say they really tried hard, and then they quit, and then they wonder later, well, why didn't that work? And it's quite obvious, to us looking from the outside, is that, well, you didn't put in the time or the effort that people that reach mastery have done. So in your opinion, Warren, do you think, or do you feel that that concept or the idea of the journey to mastery must include this time of, whether it's apprentice study, evolving into self-study, to social intelligence, that it takes time and you have to go through the process? But as you're going through the process, there does become a point where you get that, as they talk about, that aha moment, or where something just sparks and clicks in your brain that everything you've been studying just comes full circle and it all just works together. Do you think that that's, you agree with that process, or have you experienced any parts of that process yourself in evolving and creating the Pimp God brand and the evolution of that?
I want to talk a little bit about, on this third question, about aspects of man. And there are 5 centers that govern man. There's an intellectual center, an emotional center. There is a moving center, there is an instinctive center, and there's an emotional center. There's a sexual center. So I don't know if I said emotion already, but there's also a sexual center. And the moving center, in order to understand this aspect, this mechanism in man, is when you look at a person learning to dance. And they first have 2 left feet, and they're trying to move and trying to learn the moves of a particular dance. Let's say it's a particular dance they're trying to learn, and they're just trying to get the moves right. But they're doing it all in their head, right? In order to become a great dancer, it's the same as learning to become a great singer, or learning to become a great musician, or songwriter, or artist, painter, or writer, teacher, lecturer. At first, you're all in your head. You're thinking about the moves. Let's going back to our dance example. You're thinking about it. Am I doing it right? Oh, okay, I missed a step there. I noticed that they kind of swing around when they go into this part where I just sort of stop and then go. So you're thinking and you're thinking and you're thinking and you're thinking. The moving center is what a good football player or a good martial artist is. It's instinct. But there's an intelligence that's a part of it too at the highest level, you see. And so a basketball player with a very high IQ, game IQ, they see the court and they see what's happening differently than even a good player. And what they are looking at is something that could only be taught by someone that has mastered themselves in the game to that degree. You could go to all kinds of camps and learn this and learn that, but certain stuff Certain stuff that just comes natural to players just can't be taught. Or boxers, or great martial artists. How do you teach certain things? You see, at the highest level of martial arts is no martial arts. Bruce Lee said, when I hit, I don't hit it. Hits all by itself. When I expand, he contracts, but when he expands, I contract. He said you have to be like water. And whatever shape that water feels, it takes the shape of that. And that's what a good fight is. It's a dance. It's really a dance. Two good boxers are dancing with each other. Okay? And the intricacies and the, fighters, they fight in milliseconds, right? The subtleties, right? And the fastness with which they move, where they barely escape getting their lights punched out as they set up for a move, and the fist goes right past their face as they land clean on the other person. That kind of timing is a dance. When they expand, I contract. Or I do certain things. Boxers will do certain things, or a good fighter, to make the other person seem as if they're open in that way. And so therefore they're setting up for a counter, so that when you go for the obvious, right, and you're exposed in that way, within those milliseconds, bam, they step just so, tilt a certain way, and from a completely different and open angle, they just crush your world. And that's when you begin to dance. I mean, really dance. Where now it's not moves that you're trying to learn. It's not, how do I do this? How do I do this? What's the proper this? But rather, you give yourself over to higher consciousness and you dance. And I think that life should be, and so when a good dancer develops himself to the highest degree, it moves when the beat moves. And he don't know what he's going to do necessarily. He just gets out there and does it. And that's the key. Sometimes it be dudes that could dance all night with different women, and they be jamming. I've seen dudes like that getting down. But they know how to move, man. They know how to move. And it don't matter what you put on. Trap music, whatever you want, but if it's got a good any melody to it or whatever, they killing it, and I've seen that. And the whole thing is, practice can make perfect. But I think the ultimate practice is when you move away from thinking it through, to giving yourself over. And so that's where a good teacher starts to show you how to tap into that flow within you, because we all have it in our own way, in our own unique way. And so that's where the moving center comes in, where it's just you just become a part of the flow. You don't think it, you just become what's necessary in order to make it happen. This is what Mayweather said about being 50-0. He said, nobody makes adjustments like me. Nobody works as hard as me. And so you can plan all you want to for a fight, but you got to make adjustments, because you're not fighting a PlayStation or a Nintendo or whatever they're playing nowadays. You're not fighting them. You're fighting. You don't know what that person might do. So you have to give yourself over, in a sense, to a different realm of consciousness, a consciousness that's based on the flow, where you become the chi. See, it's a completely different game. And I think that in life, our inner GPS system is the key. It'll never let you down. And that's what we have to learn to get in tune with. And that is something that I guess you could say you have to work towards that. Practice learning how to listen to your inner self. But in order to do that, you also have to practice dying. Meditation is a practice in dying. Whatever you and your ego wants to do, practice dying is what meditation is. Forcing yourself to be still, like a body, like a dead body, and work towards also tapping into the higher realms of yourself. How many bodies do we have? Most people would say one. The real answer is at least 4. We have 4 bodies. And those bodies exist on different planes of existence simultaneously.
So I have a quote I want to read that we can discuss from the Robert Greene Mastery interview. I guess I'll call it supplemental text. And he says that the more you understand the process that leads to mastery, the less mysterious it will become, and the more likely you will be to follow it and make yourself truly irreplaceable. So, Warren B., do you think that quote or that line reads true to you? That the more we understand this process of becoming a master, that the less mysterious it becomes, so the more likely we will be able to follow it to get it to where we want to ultimately become. So, do you personally think that the more you understand something, the better chance you have of succeeding in that said thing, whether it be mastery or a hobby, that you're passionate about perhaps, or making videos or art, whatever the case may be, fill in the blank of that. But do you agree with that statement that the more you understand the process that leads to it, the less mysterious it will become?
In answering this question 4, when my dad passed, I asked my father what it was like to make that transition. And this is interesting because I'm the only one in the family, I guarantee you, that knows how to enter in that realm. And so while my family was looking at it from the standpoint of me not coming to a funeral to pay my last respects, oh no, that's not what it's about. I asked my father without knowing how he died. I knew nothing. Just my uncle called and told me that my father was gone. And I didn't know how, right? So in my consciousness, I talked to my father. And this is different from what happens a lot in Western society, where people were calcified as pineal glands and all this shit, acting like they're entering into these other realms and talking with whatever. And I'm not saying there's no validity to it, but when you are truly developed, being able to see and hear on other planes becomes easier to you. First realizing that you in and of yourself, right, exist on 4 different planes simultaneously. You have 4 or 5 bodies, and they all exist on different planes within the same space. So the way that I liken it is, okay, in the flesh I'm 6'3". That's my cellular body. But in my next body, right, I might be 6'5", 6'6". Same body, same frame, but not physical. And in my next body, I might be 6'7". Okay? And in the body after that, my 4th body, I might be 7 foot. See? But all within the same space, you see? And so the ability to tap into higher planes is possible once you realize that there's a part of you that already has access to that plane. See? That is already privy to tapping into that realm. You see? But the key to remember is that your 4 bodies exist within the same space, right? I hadn't talked to my family. I still don't know all the details yet. But I really don't need them to find out. I asked my father after he passed what it was like. What was it like? You know what my father told me? He said, I didn't even know it happened. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I was going through this and that, whatever. I'm not saying that he wasn't sickly, right? But I'm saying when he crossed over, he said he didn't even know that it happened. He didn't even know. So 2 days later, my aunt calls me. She said, this is not something I want to text you. I want to tell you personally. I said, okay. So I said, so what happened? He said, your dad went to bed like, I don't know, maybe after 12, 11:30, 12. Because he had to get up in the morning to go to dialysis about 5:30 in the morning. So that's when the alarm clock goes off for him to get up. So he goes in the room. Mom's still on the couch. I guess she fell asleep. And the alarm goes off. My aunt's telling me this. So my mother goes in to wake him up, and he was already gone. He died in his sleep. I didn't know that. But I already talked to him. And he told me that he didn't even know. So what I'm trying to say is that as we move into this age of Aquarius, which starts December 21st of this year, this is the age of knowing. And I think that what we really need to strive towards is knowledge of self, because that's the most important thing. And knowledge of self is not just the physical body. You got 3 other bodies that you need to, understand and develop yourself into, you see, because there's power in each and abilities there that you're not making use of, And I'm learning. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I'm still studying. I'm still reading. I'm still coming across new information. Every day I want to change neurologically. Every single day. Because the more that I tap into my higher self, right, the more I'll be able to make use of the powers available to me on higher planes of existence.